Calimera. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm super glad to be here. For me, Greece, me coming from Spain, Greece is kind of a home. I feel like home being here. And I can say that the experience that I'm going to talk about in the couple of minutes from now are kind of similar in the sense of Greece and Spain has rooted historical similarities in terms of culture, in terms of history, recent history definitely, and I do think we can learn from each other. I must say that I'm going to start in my introduction saying what not to do. So let's say what kind of learnings we can extract from the failures of the Spanish and Barcelona. I'm going to talk about Barcelona as well, cases in our country. So I hope that learning, sometimes when you learn from failure, is even better than when you learn from a beautiful, successful case, right? So how is this moving? The click. This one?
No.
No, this one. Yeah. So just as a reminder, so Spain, back to 1950, was basically a country where half of the population was tenant and half of the population was homeowners, okay? But during the dictatorship, the government at that time said, okay, if you are a tenant, you can be a dangerous communist. You don't have any ownership, so maybe you can go to strike and you make some noise. So if we become all proletarians into homeowners, we will have social peace. That was the idea of the first housing minister of Spain back to that time, Arrese, José Luis Arrese. And he made a very interesting policy in their point of view, which was to give social housing to the working class people, but in a way that was tricky. So during the first 30 years, that social housing was social, so prices were capped. But after 30 years, by default, all that social housing went to the market, so it was privatized. That was the scheme. It was a very, very interesting scheme in the point of view. And in their own goals, they succeed. You see the distribution of population by gender, and you see that owners reach 80% in 2000. Even better than the Americans. The Americans, they say American dream, so on. The Spanish dream, you got it there. But for sure, that model exploded. We have the super real estate bubble in 2008. We are seeing from that moment on that model is not fit for the current situation anymore. So just to have the number, 6.5 million units were built under this social housing program. All of them are now gone. Some of them are still in place, but almost all of them are now gone. So we are in the situation of the European countries. We are really on the list. Greece is worse, sorry, but we are close to Greece because of that. But the situation would have been different if we have not lost all of 6 million social housing, and we would have been closer to be Austria if we didn't make that mistake. So as a first tip, let's say, I would say all social, affordable, public housing, no matter if it's promoted by public-private partnership, no matter if it's cooperative or fully public one, should be permanent. So never, never, never sell houses, never, never, never sell public land, which is the other mistake we made in Spain Vienna is the opposite example. Vienna never sold any public land because public land is the basic asset for creating a social housing model. Without public land, you are lost. So that's the second mistake Spain made, and I hope we can learn from that experiences. So, okay, I'm not going to talk more about the general context, but in the recent years, we have had a lot of pressure in terms of population. More than in the last 3 years, 1 million people arrive in Spain, 1 million in 3 years. And for sure, because of Spain didn't have a strong housing policy, the housing stock is small, the public investment is small, and then everything is basically for market. But here, so far I'm like saying all of this is horrible, but thanks God, during the last 10 years, housing has become an important issue in the country, and the policymakers start to create new ways, new innovative ways. Barcelona was, and my colleague from Vienna mentioned that Barcelona probably was the head of this change in the new approach. And Spain, as a government, has followed the Barcelona approach as well. So just to give it to you, this is more theoretical, but I think it is worth to mention. So usually in housing policy, you have this kind of distinction between the GIMBY and the NIMBY. This is very Anglo-Saxon words, no? Not in my backyard or yes in my backyard, right? Which means you are pro-housing or anti-housing. You believe in build, baby, build, no? That, by the way, the Labour housing minister mentioned in the UK recently. Or you say, no, we don't need more housing because we have enough and there is a lot of empty houses and so on and so forth. And then you have another discussion, another axis, which is we need a framework, rules, who helps the private owners, who incentivize the developers to build housing. So let's keep all the protection for renters. And then you have another approach which says, okay, maybe we need some housing to be built, but that takes time. So during the time the prices are out of control, you need some protection because people are having problems today. So between the two axes, you see the different descriptions. Usually, market GIMBY has been the more pro-market solution. Just build any kind of housing, no matter where, no matter for whom, but with the reduction of tenant protection. That approach, which has been the neoliberal approach, is not the approach that the current Spanish government and the Barcelona government is making. The Barcelona government and the Spanish government is going for the public GIMBY, which is, yes, we need to build, especially we need to build public, social, affordable housing, because we have a problem of accessibility, mainly, but at the same time, we need some tenant protection, because otherwise the jungle of the market will eat the current situation of the... So how you make both things work together? How you design regulations that doesn't reduce the construction of housing? That is one, or in my opinion, one of the most important questions we should ask. But just to remind, the approach I'm going to show you is this one, which is pro-housing, pro-tenant protection. So now I'm going to talk about Barcelona. By the way, I didn't mention that in the CV. It was my fault. But I work in the housing department for more than 6 years in the Barcelona City Council Housing Department. That's why I have all these PPTs. Here you see the comprehensive strategy that Barcelona took to change the situation that the city suffered. So the idea was housing for all as a main claim. That means that the idea is to ensure access for all to decent, green, healthy, and affordable housing, and that means to reduce the housing overburden that tenants had in the city. But because housing policy is such a complex issue, housing policy usually is, if you are a housing minister or housing councillor, you are mad because you don't want to be in that department. Let's be honest. Usually, any politician wants a department where the policy is cheap, is popular, is fast, and is simple. And what happened with housing policy? It's expensive, is polemic, can be polemic, because you are dealing with different and strong interests each other, is slow, and is very complex. So we need some heroes here. Thanks to Vienna, show us that if you invest over all of that period of time, that work, but in the short term, it's difficult to show some results. But we have some results. So the approach of Barcelona was the 5S. We need more supply, especially public supply. We need more stability for tenants. We need to give some subsidies, because even though people that are at risk of being evicted need allowances to remain in housing. We need social dialogue, so we need participatory places where landlords and tenants and different actors, they try to make some consensus. And for sure, we need sustainability, because the residential sector, as you know, is one big part of the contamination process in the climate change. So you need to add as well the sustainability approach. So I have not much time. Okay, 5 minutes. So basically, supply. I'm going to highlight, in my opinion, the more important parts of this strategy made by the city of Barcelona. So the idea was, first thing, 10 years plan, because housing is a slow policy. You cannot make 4 years plan. It doesn't make any sense. For example, in Spain, the time you need to build a house or a building is 5 years on average. Then, if you have 4 years, you cannot show anything. So you need at least 10 years, even more time, even would be better. And the goal was, in terms of supply, to double the size of the public housing stock. That was the goal, okay? And using different approaches. So I'm going to show you the different approaches that the Barcelona follow. So the first one is probably the most technical one, is about land use regulation. So in Spain, we have the inclusionary zoning, where when you develop a new area, up to 40% has to go for social housing, okay? But the problem of the city of Barcelona is, okay, Barcelona is already built. You have sea, mountain, river, mountain. Basically, you are enclosed in a place. Nice back in the past where it's difficult to conquer, right? But now it's a difficult issue because you feel you cannot grow as you need. So the municipality, beyond this land reserve that give the public land you need for building social housing, introduces a land reserve in consolidated land. So basically within the city of Barcelona. And that was the, and that was the, maybe it's here, no. That was one of the policy where, imagine you are within the city of Barcelona, within the center, you are an owner, you redevelop one building, so the law says that after you redevelop, even though that building was before purely private, now 30% of the houses after the redevelopment should be for social, okay? That was the inclusionary zoning we introduced in the city center. Okay, the other one was to public housing construction. Public housing should be not just well distributed in order to skip ghettos, but should be beautiful. In my opinion, public housing, you should be proud to live in a public housing building. Otherwise, you feel like you are poor policy for poor people. You know what I mean? So this was a nice example. This was a technique made by ship containers. And the city of Barcelona, that's Gothic. That place you are seeing is in the real center in the old town, in the Gothic, near La Rambla, and it was made in less than 1 year using ship containers. It was cheap, and it had all the energy efficiency savings and all of that. When the city was doing it, you see the Guardian mention it. Sardines for the poor. It was, and for sure, all the opposition were saying, you know, what a shitty policy. But the end result was it's the same building. It's this one, and this one received more than, I believe, 10 European awards of being innovative, sustainable approach. They received the new European Bauhaus award, and so on and so forth. So it's possible to have beautiful, that's pictured from inside. And by the way, this is an emergency housing. This is for mainly homeless people. Okay? And suddenly they are living in the city center and they are living with this quality. The city of Barcelona built others. Well, you know, Barcelona has the proud of having good architecture. So you need to embed that into the place. So this is another beautiful, this is for youth, public housing for youth with building materials. That was the mandatory inclusionary zoning I mentioned, nothing to add there. And then you see how the rate of building by the public housing authority changed. The first 4 years, as I mentioned, was not so successful because you need to create all the conditions to build. So the first term, the first legislature, the critics were saying, you said you are going to build a lot of public housing, and you saw the results, not too much. But thanks God, a second term was possible, and then the rate suddenly jumped because of the work you need to be done before, okay? So be aware, City of Athens, that I know you are going to create an affordable department, that this is going to happen to you as well, okay? But the City of Barcelona had, as I mentioned, a problem of scarcity of public land. So how you increase the public housing stock without having enough public land? So the city started to create a policy of purchasing private buildings and converting it into public ones, okay? Using one thing which is very technical, preemption right and right of first refusal. I don't know if I have the time to explain to this, but basically the public city has a preferential right to buy. So imagine two private, the seller and the buyer, they reach a market price, okay? And they got into the register and said, okay, 5 million for this building, blah, 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 blah. And then that contract is frozen by the law. That contract goes to the city. The city studied that transaction and decide whether if it buys or not. And if you buy, it's yours. And you pay the price that the private transaction were made. So you pay, let's say, market price. But sometimes market price can be cheap, because when you buy a whole building, usually you have economy of scale. So if you count the prices per units, prices are not so high. Okay, the city of Barcelona took this as a serious issue. It bought 50 buildings, more than 1,600 units. spending more than 200 millions, okay? And thanks to that, the city of Barcelona has public housing throughout all the city in order to stop to having ghettos. This is an example that was a private building and now becomes a public one, okay? And the other strategy was to mobilize vacant housing, giving incentive, renovation, subsidies, and so on and so forth for the owners, because usually it's a problem of rehabilitation. But the city managed more than 1,000 units using this approach. So the owners, so there is conditionality. That's, by the way, another, in my opinion, tip Barcelona can give. If you give public money to owners, to private owners, always should be attached some conditionalities. So yes, I give you with public money subsidies to renovate your house. You give me your house, the uses of your house during at least 5 to 10 years, and then I put it into the social housing. Okay, I don't get the ownership. I give it to you back, but you give me the use of your house during a period of time. And that's the numbers of and the units we mobilize in the city. And then finally, the city created, trying to learn from Vienna, different public-private partnerships, but with some key rules, because for sure here the devil is in the detail. And you can have a successful or a failure case. So the important one is to create basically an alliance with the cooperative sector. That's one of the sector. And then you have to create a company or places with a private real estate owner. So you need to share risks and rewards, otherwise it's not working. So basically the city give land in a leasehold arrangement, so you never lost the land during 99 years to cooperatives, and they, plus subsidies, plus other things, and they build this amazing housing. They build this amazing housing. The first one, La Borda, has had as well a lot of awards for the quality because it's community-oriented, participatory, it's green, and it's social. And thanks to this kind of key partnership between the third sector and between the government. And then, even though the city believed that a good collaboration with for-profit private investment was important, and it created a company where 50% of the company was managed and the equity was managed by the public and 50% by the private. Both in the same company will build or is building more than 4,500 affordable housing rental units. So here, the government says, okay, you can come here, you can invest, you can put your money, the public land is mine, blah, blah, blah. I reduce some of your concerns in terms of risk of demand. You will have always demand, and if someone is not paying, the city will pay, okay? So you reduce that, but in compensation, all the public land will be still public. I don't give it to you. Prices is decided by both of us, inside the company, and the company is 50-50, so you need to reach an agreement. And then the houses as well are permanent, okay? So that was the main ideas of creating buildings, and I don't know if I have time, but I really wanted to just stress 1 minute to talk about stability, which is the second goal I mentioned. I'm just going to mention in a very brief way the rent control that Barcelona helped to introduce in Catalonia first and in Spain now. Spain has its first, by the way, the city is banning Airbnb as Athens did in 3 neighborhoods. Barcelona start to ban in the city center as Athens is doing now, but the current approach is to go for a full ban of Airbnb in 5 years. So no more Airbnbs in the city. So the approach of the rent regulation basically is helping you have different tense markets, and then you you freeze the market, let's say. So you go into the private market and you say, okay, if you are a landlord and you renovate or you create a new rental contract, prices should remain the same, just with the increase of inflation, that is possible, but not with market price inflation. So you get some of the both. So for sure, landlords still make good profits, but they are not making maximum profits. And at the same time, you are giving some long-term tenure to renters, right? This for sure has been very criticized by a lot of people, but this is the result of the Catalan and Barcelona rent regulation. Is not made by the government, it's made by independent economists, peer review. You can search it in internet. The result was, our results indicates that the Catalan rent regulation reduced average rents paid by 6%. However, this price drop did not lead to a reduction in the supply of housing units in the rental market, which is usually the typical attack, okay? And I'm not going to, this is more complicated. Now, these policies in other places, not just in Barcelona.
Mr. González de Molina, if you